Hello, our NS family members. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to our ISNS Wisdom. I'm Mandy Chai, the chairlady of ISNS Institute of the Greater China. I'm the host for this event today. And someone asked me why we run ISNS Wisdom in every 2 months. The answer is because we are refreshing, recharging, and reconnecting here and now, aren't you? The first one, refreshing and as knowledges, recharging and inspiration to learn something new. So today's topic, you might be very familiar meta-state model. The topic is the unexpected expressiveness of the meta-state model. As we all know, meta-state model, it is our foundation and distinctive model for NeuroSemantics, and that takes NLP to a whole new level, systemic thinking and operating. And now I am in a very curious, exciting seriousness learning stage to expecting what I will learn something new in the meta-state model again. So we are always in a state. What is your learning state prepared in this session? So the second one is our reconnecting time from different ISNS institute over the world. So when you see your local, I will share the slide. When you see the local institute slide, please turn on your mic together and say hello and how are you with your local languages together. So let me share the screen now. Share. Something interesting now happened. Okay. Share the screen now, okay? So when you see your country or your institute, please say hello in your language and how are you? The first one, let's reconnecting, is Institute of NeuroSemantics, the Greater China. Hello， 我们现在来说一下，大家听到吗 ？Hello， 苏神。Hello，
大家好。
我们用普通话，大家好。
大家好。
Yeah, we are speaking Cantonese and Chinese. Say how are you? 大家好。Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody. 你们好, you are okay. So the current person is Mandy Chai, is myself. So the next one, Institute from Indonesia. Hi.
Halo.
Hi. Hello.
Hoi.
Okay, thank you so much, all Indonesians. Okay, say hi. And the next one is the Philippines. Geraldine, you be part of that.
Hello.
The contact person is Sheila.
Musta na kayo?
Hi.
Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat.
Oh, thank you for your reconnecting to us. And the next one is NeuroSemantics Institute Malaysia. Hello, Masuki.
Hello.
Apa kabar?
Everyone.
And Elvish, are you here, Elvish? Are you? All right. So the next institute is Australia. The contact person is Sean, and also Australia. Hi, is there anyone from Australia tonight? Hi, Sean. All right.
It's 2 in the morning for them.
Oh yeah, the morning, early morning. Okay, they are in the dream now. Okay. The next one is Institute of NeuroSemantics, Asia, Middle East, and North Africa. Mohammed is the contact person. Hi, Mohammed.
Hey. أهلا مرحبا.
Hello everybody. مرحبا.
Wow. Thanks for your voice. Thank you so much. And the next one is hi, Africa, NeuroSemantics Africa. Kobati, Karen.
Goedemiddag. Ik hoop jullie een heerlijke middag samen met ons vanmiddag.
Hello. Good voices. And this one is from Scandinavia.
Oh, hello.
Scandinavia.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Everyone from Scandinavia. Okay. The next one is Institute from Europe. Joming. Hi. Hi,
Hello.
Joming. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Okay.
How are you?
All right. Thank you so much. And the next one is Latam. Latam, Adrian. Hi.
Hola.
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 ¿Qué tal?
Hola.
Hola, 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 hola.
Hola,
Hola,
hola.
¿cómo están?
Ari,
Hola.
we're happy to
Hola.
be here.
Hola, hola.
Hola, hola, hola.
Hello.
Hola.
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 Dominican
Okay.
Republic.
Buenos
So
días.
everybody
Aquí.
from Latam. Hi.
Mucho entusiasmo de
Buenos
Latinoamérica.
días desde México.
Hola, desde Ecuador. Hola.
José
Eso.
Bretón, Dominican Republic.
Eso.
So many different languages. Thank
Costa
you so much,
Rica.
everybody
¿Qué
from
tal que se idiomas?
Latam.
Gracias.
Wow, wow. Well, thank you so much. And the next one is Institute from Brazil. Hi.
Brasil! Hello!
Brasil. Alô.
Bom dia! Bom dia! Bom dia!
The Portuguese. Oh, it's your morning
Vamos nós
time.
aqui!
Thank you, everybody from Brazil. And the last but not the least one is Institute from the United States. Hello, Jason.
Hello.
Everybody.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hola, buenos
Hi,
días, buenas
everyone.
tardes, buenas noches.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone
Muchas
from
gracias.
the United States. And Jason will be our Motorola, not
Jason va a
Motorola,
ser
moderator today. Okay, so let me finish the share and we get the start. Okay. Okay, so we come back. When we come back, just give me 1 minute. I keep my time, 1 minute to state the basic ground rules today. The first one, Michael's presentation time is around 17 minutes, including answering the questions. So if you have the questions in the process of presentation, please write down on the chat room. Start with label question first. And if time is limited, Jason will choose the most relevant questions. So if we don't answer your question, maybe you have time to ask Michael, to email Michael. And the next one is let everybody mute your mic in the process of presentation. And because we will take photo at the end of this session, so please stay until the end so that we can take a group photo together. And so those are the ground rules in 1 minute, okay? And now, here, as a refreshing and recharging NS knowledge learners, when you are watching and listening to the unexpected, extensive of matter states model, how will you make your learning to be fun, joyful, entertaining, engaging, informative, and experiential? All right, it's time. 9 minutes already. It's showtime. Please join me to give warm welcome to Dr. Michael Hall and our moderator, Jason Schneider. Okay, thank you. Jason, it's your time. Michael, hi.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Thank you, Mandy, for such a wonderful introduction. And it was so great to hear everybody's energy and your languages from your home countries to represent how international our community is together here. I, like Mandy said, am super excited to have this opportunity where we can share this space together with Michael to go even deeper into the metastates model, something that is at the core of all of the work that we do and to hopefully find some new things that we've never seen or heard before to continue our learning journey. So thank you for being here, and welcome, Michael and Geraldine.
Thank you, Jason. It's good to be here today with everybody. The one thing we all have in common is that as a meta coach and as a neurosemantic trainer, you have experienced APG. So you got the introduction to meta states. And that introduction led you through possibly 14 different patterns. And those 14 patterns are 14 ways of meta stating yourself. And so what we're going to do as we go through this is to deepen our understanding of meta states, because what you experience at APG was really just the hem of the garment. It was just the beginning. And so if, Jason, if you can put up the slides, we will go through the slides and begin to do that.
Sure, give me one moment just to open them up here.
Okay.
And yeah, while we're loading them, you can think about what state you'd like to be in for this presentation.
Jason said that meta states is the introduction, is the core to everything we do. And that is true with a vengeance, because after we found meta states, Bob Bodenhammer and I spent time looking at NLP through the lens of meta states. And in that way, we redid a lot of the NLP. We redid the meta programs, the timelines, the submodalities, the strategies. And so NeuroSemantics has taken NLP to a new level by reestablishing the meta level of NLP. When we get to our slides, our second slide says that before NLP had the name NLP in 1976, September of 76 is when the name NLP occurred. Before that, from 1972, 3, 4, 5, and 5, it was called Meta. Now, Facebook has gone and tried to reclaim that name, but it was called Meta. And in fact, the Institute of NLP in San Diego at that time was the Meta Institute. And so Meta was a major theme when NLP started. And if you look at Structure Magic, you'll see several phrases like not only the meta model, but the meta position, the meta tactics, the meta commenting, meta questions, meta form. The word meta is used all over those original books. Somehow it got lost. Now the theme of NLP, the question that the founders were trying to answer was, how do these experts in communication, how do these experts do what they do? Above and beyond Gestalt, family systems, and medical hypnosis, above and beyond that, what's going on? And that's what made NLP a meta discipline from the very beginning. Then somehow over the years, the techniques became more important than anything else. And so people started focusing on the techniques, the patterns, the processes, because you could do some real magic with those processes. And so on the slide there, NLP is a meta discipline, and how meta was at the very core of it. Well, many years later, 1994 is when metastates was discovered. And if we have the next slide, what we did with metastates was to take the basic of NLP, the structure of experience, we took it to the next level by looking at the meta level structure of the basics of NLP, which is a state, which is a mind, body, emotion state in reference to something in the world, and how we bring the world in to the movie of our mind and represent it. so that we can take that world with us wherever we go. So the next slide explains the key. And so reflexivity. We say this at APG, we talk a little bit about reflexivity. Reflexivity is reflecting back onto yourself and to your experience. And that's the next slide. Somehow, inside of us, we have this ability to reflect back onto ourselves. Slide just before that one. So reflecting back, you think about your thoughts. You feel about your thoughts. You think about your feelings. You feel some of your feelings. And not only that, but we can take a body position in relationship to thoughts and feelings. This reflexivity is what distinguishes us from the animals. From what we know, this is what animals do not do. But from your prefrontal cortex, you can reflect back onto yourself. And when you do, you create next level experience. And so as we reflect back, then we make a response to our response. And so one way to think about a metastate is it's a second response to your first response. So if your first response is you're frustrated because something didn't work the way you wanted it, and what's your second response? That is key. That reflexivity is key to who you are and your experience. If to frustration, you get angry, anger at your frustration, you're in a worse state. If to frustration, you access a state of learning and you're in a curious, frustrated state, you'll keep learning. So the most important thing about you and your everyday experience, me and my everyday experience, is the response we make to our response. And it doesn't occur just one level. After you're angry at your frustration, how do you respond? You feel ashamed? Or do you feel curious now? So up the levels it goes, and this is the structure of subjective experience that we're exploring and delving into with metastates. So we're responding to a state with another state. It creates a richer and more textured experience. Now, that's critical. If you want to create, to design, custom design states that are rich, that are textured, that are nuanced, then bring another state to it, and another state, and another state. So every state you do, every second state you bring to a first one, qualifies it, modifies it, and creates new textures. And so simple ones, joyful learning, respectful anger, calm fear, playful curiosity. And of course, the levels go on, so that we have a lot of ability to construct just the right designed state that will help you to experience what you need to experience.
So
let's go to the next slide.
If I may, Michael, it's just, to punctuate what I'm hearing from you is that, metastates, primary states are our response to the world. So things happen in the world, we respond to the world, but our response to the world, not only is that what we're referring to as a metastate, but that's one of the things that makes us uniquely human. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So back one level. Okay, the next one then. So structurally, when you metastate, you frame. We talk a lot about framing. NLP talks a lot about framing, has lots of frames. But the metastating process of framing is creating a dynamic structuring. It's not a structure in the sense it's static and it stays, it's dynamic. And so using the word structuring, you're structuring it, it's how it holds itself in place at that moment. And we're layering And because it's a system, here's a principle of systems thinking. You cannot do one thing in a system, because when you do something, other things are happening. And that's true with metastating. Other things are happening. When you metastate, you bring one state to another. You're working with feelings, emotions. You're working with thoughts and cognitions. You're framing. You are texturing. So much is going on at the very same moment. So this is the framing aspect of metastating. So here's a diagram talking about the framing. So if you bring joy to your learning, you not only have joyful learning, so that joy modifies the learning, joy is the frame for the learning. That is, joy is the classification. It's the category. You've just created a category in your mind. You've just created another structure there that you have members of that category, members of that class. And now learning is a member of that class. So if you have a category like learning, like joy, how many members do you have in that class? So here is something about metastates that is hidden to most people, and they don't realize that we're setting up categories in the mind. Be careful of the category you set up. If you bring failure to your learning, woe be is you, because you've just created a category that's called failure, and you've got learning in it. And what else are you going to put in it? The more you put in it, the bigger the category of failure. So this is where we have to be very careful and very mindful of what we're doing when we bring a state to a state.
That's fascinating, Michael, if I can just comment on that. So not only are we bringing a state to a state, which I think is how most people would think about metastates at a basic level, but also we're categorizing something within a category. And that's really interesting. I never heard that before. So the more you put into a category, the bigger the category gets. And so beware of which categories you're holding, how you're filing your organizing and filing your experiences.
Right. So when you, as a coach or a trainer, hear someone bring us one state to the other, if it's a negative state, they've just created a negative category, and it is a reality in their mind, and oftentimes to their destruction. Question that always comes up, and this is a big myth and misunderstanding in the field of NLP to this day. I get this still constantly. You trainers probably get it, is going meta dissociation. And in big, bold letters, the answer is no. And the reason is because of what Mandy said earlier. You're always in a state. And when you step out of one state, you're stepping into another state. So this word dissociation is not literal. You do not step out of your body. I have asked people for years, if you can dissociate, step out of your body, please do so now, and go over there to the other side of the room. Leave your body here. Well, it's not literal. What we're talking about accommodatively is that they have brought a state of numbness or pure observation or feeling not like myself to whatever their experience is. Usually a traumatic experience. They don't want to feel it, so they numb themselves, or they just observe and become like a Mr. Spock. So dissociation is not what we do when we go meta. If you are stepping into joyful learning, there's more emotion there, not less. And if you are into calm fear, the quality of your fear is a new quality and a better quality than just fear. And if you bring respect to anger or tenderness to anger, you have more emotion, not less. So when you go metta, you're not becoming unemotional or dissociating. You are qualifying the emotion and texturing it in new ways.
So what I'm hearing you say there is not only is it not dissociation, but it actually can intensify states.
Exactly.
Which is quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite. So this is a big misunderstanding of a lot of people. And you will see statements like this: going metta is dissociation in NLP books. And I've been working trying to get this myth exploded, and I need your help to do that. So the result is a complex meta-level structure. When you meditate, you transcend out of the anger into the joy, but you keep the anger. So it's transcending and including. So it's not getting rid of things. Here's another big myth in the field of NLP. Oh, meta states is collapsing of anchors. Well, that's not. Collapsing, you would be on a horizontal level, bringing this state of stress to this state of calmness and trying to experience both simultaneously. But that's not what we're doing. We're bringing the calmness to the stress. So it's calm stress, which probably is the gestalt of alertness or mindfulness. So we have a different word. It's not collapsing, it's coalescing. The higher level coalesces, it filters down through and into the previous state. And what happens is the joy gets into your learning. And if you've done that year after year, decade after decade, you probably cannot pull the joy out of the learning, or the respect out of the anger, or the calmness out of the fear. That it is embodied. It is in neurology. It is integrated into not only who you are, but your way of being in the world. And so this creates gestalt states that we'll get to in a little bit, the embodiment. So the coalescing, how long does it take to coalesce? Well, you have to do it enough so that it's not just something in your head, it is now integrated, and your nerves feel it, your muscles feel it. It's in muscle memory. This is one of the mistakes a lot of people have made about meta states. They do a pattern once or twice, and they think they've got it. You've got to keep doing it and doing it and doing it, transcending and including again and again until it gets in muscle memory. Then you don't have to remember it because it's your way of being.
If I could share a quick story here, just from personal experience. When I lost a loved one a couple of years ago, I was experiencing deep sadness. This was a couple of weeks later. And it was, kind of here, I was thinking, well, let me collapse this. Let me get out of this sadness, this grief. And it didn't feel appropriate to just put away the sadness. It felt like it was the right state to be feeling. But being able to texture it in real time was something that was useful. So to bring some calmness to my grief, or some compassion to my grief. And at first it was I had to really access it and bring it. But with time and with practice, it coalesced down to now that is the quality of the grief that I was experiencing through time and practice and effort and applying to self.
Great example. Good example. So here's our diagram for framing, as we frame thought upon thought, feeling upon feeling. And the next diagram is from Gregory Bateson. And here's an example that comes from Gregory Bateson. The 1, 2, 3, 4 at the bottom are messages that a person may have, let's say, picked up from childhood. I'm clumsy. I'm a C-level student. My dad thinks I'm awkward and I won't mount to anything. These messages, that'll put you in a state, probably in an unpleasant state, aware of different inadequacies. Now, if you add all those inadequacies together and you transcend it and include those painful messages, then the overall generalization, the overall abstraction is, I've had a painful childhood. And if you have a painful childhood, you're doomed. So that meta message as a frame is much more destructive than message 1, 2, 3, or 4. Message 1, okay, learn how to be smooth and not so clumsy. You could fix message 1 or message 2 by just development. But if a person still has message, the meta message there, then this frame, which is a belief, a disvalue, an understanding, a complex equivalent, is going to do a lot of destruction. But here's the great thing about metastating. You're only one step away from transformation. So if you go up to the next message, these old messages all involve beliefs. They're a child's thinking, the best thinking that a child at that age could do. And maybe they served me at that time. But I have much more accurate and enhancing ways to think now. So this comes from Gregory Bateson in his book, Steps to an Ecology of Mind, how that the highest meta level will govern, rule, control, manage the lower levels. And when you jump to that level, the other levels are managed, are dealt with, and we're operating from a whole new frame of mind.
So Michael, if I can ask, it seems here at the second level here with the message A, it seems to me like that's perhaps a unconscious or an automatic, people are metastating themselves without being aware of it and doing it in potentially unhealthy and unresourceful ways. But when we can bring more consciousness to the process, like you said, we could transcend. Is that fair to say? Is that?
Yeah, I think that's true for many, many people. They're not even aware of that meta message, that generalization that they have brought from childhood. Now, some people will be aware of that one. And then to make it worse, they will now feel ashamed, or they'll bring some other message. It's the messages that make us who we are. Each of these messages are meanings that a person has made, and the meanings you make are the emotions that you're going to feel. So here's a diagram metastating, how that states are embedded inside of states. So it's a little different diagram. It portrays the systemic nature of metastating and the layering effect. And so here, upon anger and upset, we're bringing relaxation and calmness, and then to that we're bringing appreciation. And so the layering, if you think of it dynamically, I know that the diagram is static. It's just a frozen picture. But if you think of it as movement, as ongoing movement, life, then this is what the systemic nature of metastates and the layering. When we do this layering of states, our next one. So if you do layering of learning, you've created meta learning. Now not only have learned something, you know how to learn. Thinking about another person's perspective puts you into what we call in NLP, second perceptual position. Now, when you do second perceptual position, you're metastating yourself with what you think the other person is perceiving. You may be wrong, but you're still trying on what you think are that other person's thoughts. That's where if you open up communication and have dialogue back and forth, you can get their actual thoughts. And then when you think, you can actually be using their perspective. And that creates rapport, that creates connection, that creates bonding between people. When you think about a relational exchange between you and them, and you step back even further, you're in third perceptual position. So as you can see, NLP has incorporated inside of it some basic metastate structures, even though NLP didn't recognize it.
That's amazing. So thinking about the perceptual positions as ways of metastating, as different perceptual positions, different frames or perspectives.
So the next diagram there, we're constructing these contexts. So here's another way to think of it. Every time I metastate, I am creating an internal context, an internal environment. So my environment at first may be joyful about learning. And then I might put that inside of another context of passionate about joyful learning. And I might put that in another context of committed to passionate, joyful learning. So every metastate sets up inside your mind a context. And that takes us to the next diagram. A metastate is an internal context of a context. Now we know that meaning is contextual. You say anything, the meaning depends on the context. If I say, hi, how are you? If the context is friendship, that's going to be different from a medical context. When a doctor says, hi, how are you? So the context controls meaning. And a lot of the context that controls your meanings and my meanings are not outside, but inside. And so this is contextual structuring of an experience. And now we can ask, in what context are you putting this idea, this thought, this emotion, this experience? The context, you are setting a classification. So if you ask the question, what kind of X is this? What kind of anger is this? Whatever the answer is, you've just identified a context. So if the answer is disrespect, so your anger is in the context of disrespect or respect or kindness or cruelty. So what's the internal context? Then is the hidden area that as a coach, as a trainer, we're going after to find that context. It only makes sense, that person's experience only makes sense with the context that they're using. And you never know what context they're using. And so that is the challenge of communication.
So we have a question from the chat here, which from Gerson, which is asking, what sends us to one category or another? So what would drive someone to go to one way of categorizing, I imagine, or contextualizing?
The original categories that we all create came from our childhood. That mom and dad said, you can have fun doing this. So now fun becomes a category in my mind. Or you're responsible for this. So now responsibility. And if responsibility is in the context of pain, consequences, then, and so we learn our context as we learn what classifications do people use when they interact and talk, and so we absorb them. And so if your parents talked a lot about success and failure, then those are categories, and we will tend to fill them up. And to that extent, there are categories that are really dysfunctional.
Wow.
Our next step in metastating and the extensiveness of metastating is how metastates creates Gestalt state. So a Gestalt state is typically 2 or more metastates applied to the same primary state, and then it becomes something that emerges that's more than and different from the sum of the parts. And that's the next slide. No, back. No, that one. The next one, maybe. It's the one that says Gestalt and gives the definition. There you go. So a Gestalt state is not just a metastate, it's a very complex state. And you can't figure it out by adding up the sum of the parts. You can add up, okay, I threw a bit of joy in there, I threw some calmness in there, I threw compassion, I threw curiosity. Now, when I put them all together, what will it be? And this is where the Gestalt, as a facet of systems thinking, is more than and different from the sum of the parts. So it's unpredictable. It is an emergent property. And so these Gestalt states comes out as attitudes. So people have attitudes, and attitudes are generally Gestalt states. So are beliefs, presuppositions, identity, and inferences. So multiple kinds of Gestalt states occur when you metastate, and this is where the creativity of the human person comes in. And especially if you want to model some expert who has a certain kind of attitude, presupposition, identity, you find out all the pieces, but still what Gestalts is going to be an emergence that's more than and different from. Belief is one of those. And so what we do in APG around belief is to identify that it's not a mere thought or a mere proposition. It's not just a cause effect or complex equivalent statement. It's a confirmation of that confirmation about that thought. And so this is what makes it a Gestalt. When a person believes, they don't just think, they don't just know, they believe. And so now much more is involved, a commitment, an intensity, and usually something that's going to affect identity. So we create a belief, which is a Gestalt, and then that belief then goes to belief systems. And so it's beliefs all the way up. It's beliefs about beliefs about beliefs. So that's why in metastates, we ask, what belief is holding this belief in place? So you believe this. There must be a belief above that that's holding it in place. If it's a negative belief, the belief above that will be more negative, and the belief above that one will be even more. And so that's when we go through a set of layers of beliefs, and it gets worse as we go up, and we're thresholding. We're pushing it to its limit until we can see all of this is not enhancing, is not working, and all of this may be just pure nonsense. Conversely, if the belief is positive, the belief that will hold it in place will be even more positive, and so on. And so we are believers. We cannot not believe. The question is, what are we believing? And how effective are you at confirming a thought, disconfirming it, so that you're the master of your beliefs, rather than your beliefs managing you?
And so could you explain a little bit more about a belief holding a belief in place? So you have a belief and a belief holds it in place, maybe an example of that?
So if I believe I can't learn, so if you ask someone, just be with that for a moment, welcome it in, I can't learn this, it's too complex. You must have some belief about learning that holds that in place. Yeah, learning's hard. Oh, so you believe that learning is hard. And this is one example, one member of the class of learning is hard. So learning is hard becomes the belief that's holding, I can't learn this, in place. So let's say learning is hard. Let's say that's a belief. Let's embrace it and hold it in place for a moment. And now transcend it. What do you believe about learning is hard? Well, some people can learn, some people can't. Okay, and you believe that? Well, yeah. Okay, so that's holding this one in place. So it's getting worse as we go up. And I guess you're one of those who can't learn. Some people can, some people can't. So it's getting worse. And
so it's like a presupposition. Would that be like a presupposition there? So if they give you the frame that's holding it place, is some people can, some people can't, we can have even a presupposed frame that you're assuming the person is assuming that they're one that can't.
Exactly. And those are the hidden frames or hidden meta states that we can only find by inferring what's implied, which we'll get to in just a bit.
Really fascinating.
Here is metastates creating complex states. So while we talk about metastating one state to another, what actually happens inside of each of us is there's multiple levels of frames that's governing what's going on. And so just the complexity of it. And that's why we ask all the meta questions. So what do you believe? What's your decision? What's your identity? Do you have permission? What does it mean to you? What's a metaphor? And so all of these are just getting at the complexity that's in the background of our metastates. So for long-term states, which cannot be immediately accessed, but have to be developed over time and involving usually multiple strategies, we're now talking about another kind of a complex state that we all want. Here's some examples: health and well-being, wealth and wealth creation, leadership, expertise in a field. So this is where the NOP state accessing model does not work. You know, access a state of health. Step in there, feel it fully, but it doesn't. If you're sick and you got a cold or the flu and you step into the health, it doesn't work that way. So here's a complex state, and it's a gestalt of many, 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 many things. And it's usually, the real challenge is it occurs over time. And so you access, what are the pieces of well-being? What are the pieces of a healthy heart and lungs? What's the pieces of healthy skeleton muscle and tone and energy so that you can be living, and strengthening your immune system? What do you have to do? What do you have to eat? What do you have to exercise? So and so what strategy do you need so that you can take good care of yourself in your physical body and and eventually be in a state that is healthy, and you feel that well-beingness.
So I can't just remember a time when I was wealthy and have all my money come back. It's not going to work that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So the wealth is another great example. And this is where people who are caught up into the intention, expectation, belief system, believe that you're a millionaire and keep saying it to yourself and you will be. Well, that it'd be nice if it worked that way, but it doesn't work that way.
So it seems to me like something like this might be, it requires more patience maybe, or some other states that might be important for someone to do the long-term states, as opposed to getting derailed and falling off and getting knocked down and giving up and stuff like that.
Exactly. So when it comes to the complex long-term states, patience, persistence, perseverance, resilience are all, this is what makes success in those kinds of states. And what will sabotage those states is impatience, victimhood, and other kinds of things that undermine and prevent the person from staying with it.
Yeah, and maybe I'm just personally curious. So maybe people, I mean, I think that most people want to kind of get healthy quick, get rich quick. And so how do we counteract that, you know, to go, well, this is a long-term process. It's not gonna, when the next guy is going, hey, I can just do this one thing and you can get it quickly. Just imagine that you're a millionaire and you'll make the money. Anything you could say on that?
Well, when we model people who are healthy or wealthy or great leaders or an expert in some field, when we model it, they did not start out that way, and it didn't happen in a month, didn't happen in a year. Usually it's the 10-year rule, the 10,000-hour rule of deliberate practice. So there's lots of research on that, and that's what people need to encounter, the fact that this is a long-term process, and if a person is into it for the long term, then that kind of commitment is what's required. It's easy to explode the myth that it's not get rich quick or get healthy quick, because all you have to do is get someone to try it, and it's not going to work.
And I see the last one here, expertise in the field or mastery as well as one of these complex states that
exactly
takes.
So meta states can go wrong. Stepping back can go wrong. And so now we got the pathological meta states. So it all depends on what you're bringing to yourself. And if you bring any negative emotion, anger to yourself, fear to yourself, guilt, shame, stress to yourself, if you bring that to your experience, you're setting that as your internal context. You're setting that as your internal environment, your category, and the energy it produces has nowhere to go except your mind and your body. It will make you worrisome, dreadful, negative, pessimistic, neurotic. It will make your body unwell. You'll be sending the wrong messages to the body. So here's a warning, and what we call dragon states, because they're a real dragon to us, consuming our best resources. So pathological states. The principle in the pathological states is that when you bring a negative emotional state against you, they're great when you bring them to the world. I'm afraid of that dog. I'm angry at that person for what they did. That's great when it's primary state. But when you bring it to yourself in the meta state, then you're turning your energy against yourself. And very destructive.
And so this is where I mean, from my experience, where from the APG, for example, permission states or acceptance states can be useful to help to deal with the world directly.
Yeah, so one of the things we do in meta states and NeuroSemantics is in emotional mastery, the first thing is acceptance. I'm feeling this. Whatever you're feeling, just embrace it, welcome it, and then trace it back to the meanings that's creating those emotions.
And if I can ask also a follow-up here, so because I think a lot of people are trained based on their culture or their family or their environment or whatever to kind of it coalesces in where it's just a default, where I'm just angry at myself or ashamed of myself or not liking myself. And there's this kind of automatic unconscious practicing of that, potentially a long-term complex negative state. What could you say to counteract that, or how can Metastate's model help someone to counteract that?
Well, that's a good insight, that the whole idea of coalescing, if you coalesce with a negative meta structure, you are making your way of being angry, aggressive, fearful, paranoid, pessimistic, whatever, and it's getting into your muscles. This is where unlearning and being able to suspend the meaning that created that and cleaning it out becomes such a useful thing. And we have patterns both in NLP and NeuroSemantics for cleaning out someone who's got it coalesced into their neurology.
I think this could also be a big aha, or like a how fantastic kind of experience where you realize that, oh, it's not how I am or who I am. It's something that it's the same practice to undo or to put something better than it is to get this in. It's the same, it's not part of you. It's just what you've been practicing is what it sounds like to me.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a function of what we've done, not who we are.
It's a function of what we've done, not who we are.
So now to identify some of the mechanisms that's going on. Obviously reflexivity, which is a recursiveness that creates both positive and negative spirals. So we can be spiraling up, we can be spiraling down, depending upon what we're bringing to ourselves in the metastating process. There's the confirmation. So you can lock in or hold a frame, and you can unlock it by the disconfirmation, the opposite. But the confirmation process is something we humans do. We're always confirming and disconfirming. And this is how some people get so locked in to not changing. And so here's just a mechanism. If you can practice depression for 16 years, you've got a great neurological mechanism inside your head. Let's just throw some better content in than depression. Let's bring happiness in or something. The abstracting process, we take from one level, we move up to the next level, we abstract or generalize. And so we're always generalizing, which is why most people are global. And while this can create layers upon layers, if you're not abstracting properly, which is what the meta model is about, then you're creating deletions, distortions, and generalizations, and the layers will not support you and help you. We've got the process of coalescing that we've talked about and how it gets into neurology. Identifying is another process, a metastate mechanism. We're always identifying with things, and our language dooms us to this when we say I am or he is. And so identifying is a personalizing and a investing of our ego into something, so it becomes an ego investment. And we have to be very careful about using this mechanism. If we keep it tentative, we'll be a much healthier than if we do not. But the coalescing and the identifying are both installation processes. So inside of metastates are a lot of mechanisms by which we create our personality, our sense of reality, and who we are in the world.
So our like you're saying, our coalescing and our identifying with things is what it's embodying patterns that we're practicing, we're doing, whether to our best or to our worst. I have a question here, and yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Okay.
Sorry.
As trainers and coaches, I would recommend practice becoming skilled at recognizing these mechanisms in the people you work with. Is the person using their reflexivity in a healthy or unhealthy way? The spirals that they're having. Listen to and catch how they confirm, disconfirm, how they abstract, how they coalesce. These are mechanisms, and if you're working with them, you're really working at a meta level of structuring instead of the content of whatever they're offering.
How fantastic. So we have a question here in the chat. Let's see here. I found meaning and state in metastating. It looks like the process, let's see. It looks like the process in matrix is the context mentioned before intention. I'm not quite following. I found meaning and state in metastating. It looks like the process in matrix. Oh, the processes. So maybe meaning, state, and intention are the processes in the matrix model, if I'm following properly. Is context that you mentioned before, is that intention?
Yes and no. So these mechanisms of metastates are the process, the matrix processes, which is state, meaning, and intention. And so that's how the thing is being created. Intention is another one of these higher level mechanisms. We are intentional, and we set intentions. We have a sense of the future and direction, and it's one of the mechanisms that are built into every thought, every feeling. So NLP everything we've been talking about, NLP calls as logical levels. NLP has made the mistake of using a diagram of a pyramid to illustrate logical levels and to say they're hierarchical. They're not hierarchical. It's more like a hologram than a hierarchy. So logical levels, it's not a thing, it's a process, it's this layering. And out of this layering comes the psychologics of any given person. And so we could spend a lot of time on logical levels, but when you are metastating, that's what you're doing. You're creating these layers, these levels. An example of the layering is when we go to intentions. So here's an example of an intention that starts with a simple intention, and then the positive intention behind that, the positive intention behind that, the positive intention behind that. And so now we're moving up the levels, and we can do that by asking, why is that important? Or what is the positive intention behind that for achieving this? And so this is an example of intentional levels, moving up and up and up again. Most people have 3 or 4. If you have done a lot of self-development, you may have 7 or 8. And when you make these explicit, this is your hierarchy of values. And your hierarchy of values is what enables you to make wise decisions. I can't make wise decisions if I don't know what's important to me. Not real, if I haven't prioritized it. And so what this does is prioritize it and enables us to then go to the highest intentional purpose that we have, which then creates our purpose, our passion for living the life that we live. So that's why we put this in APG, the intentionality pattern. And it's one of those patterns you've got to run 5 or 10 times for it to really work its magic inside you.
And if we could specify the magic, what would you say the magic that intentionality brings is?
It's the magic of purpose. It's the magic of my life has meaning and purpose. And whatever it is that you've decided, here's my contribution. Here's the music I have to give to the world, or the beauty I have, or whatever it is. It's that sense of purpose. Too many people live purposeless lives. And when they don't know their purpose, then they tend to just bounce around and oftentimes settle for entertainment.
Wow. And so, yeah. And so this is, so for example, in the intentionality pattern, it's not wait until I find my purpose. I'm gonna wait until my purpose finds me. It's more, I'm gonna, how would you say it? Uncover, create, discover.
Or create
my own purpose.
Create my purpose. Give myself, invest myself to one of these values, which, as we know from Abraham Maslow's list of being values, are the human values that really makes us human. And once again, here's something that, as a person who uses metastates, lock this in your mind. Transformation can occur at any given moment. The next time you ask the person to step back, that transcending and including, that step back may be the magical moment in which they get perspective. They gain the insight that they needed. And it can occur at any given moment, any given level. You never know. So I am constantly surprised at the moment when the magic occurs. Because as much as I can track with someone, what's going on inside them is really unique and special to them. And so this is the delight of meditating with someone as you take them in and get them to step back.
I just want to hold this for a moment. So could you give an example maybe of I don't know, like a transformation or a magic occurring at an unexpected moment?
So Gina Devos was a dance therapist in Chicago, and she found metastates, one of my publications, back in 1997. And she decided to use dance therapy as a metastating process. So someone came in who was depressed, and she said, dance depression. They would dance depression. Then she would say, okay, you come over here and stand. Watch me do what you just did. So now they're observing their depression dance in her. She'd come back. What did you think or feel about me dancing that way? And they would say, shameful. Okay, dance shameful. They would dance shameful. Then she would dance shameful. Come back. What do you think about me dancing shameful? So it would go on a level or two. And then at one point, it would always break. That is so ridiculous. That is so silly. And they would break out in laughter. And so there's the step back. It broke the trance. It broke the hypnotic trance of being in depression, shameful depression.
That's amazing.
And when you do that physically, when you do that dancing or in your physiology, you're working with some deep, coalesced metastates.
So, Michael, are you going to teach a meta dancing anytime soon?
I'm leaving that for Geraldine. She's a great metastate dancer. This diagram's on meta programs. Let's skip it and go to the last one. In the APG manual, in the back of the manual, you've got 2 pages on this, metastating effects. So when you bring one state to another state, what happens? We can amplify, reduce, solidify, loosen, qualify, distort, negate, etc. 16 different kinds of interfaces. And so this is why you never know what's going to happen when you bring a state to a state and you ask someone to step back. All kinds of incredible things can happen. And so you have in your hands the ability to amplify a person's experience, reduce that experience, seed a response potential, focus their attention, put them in a trance. I mean, you've got the ability with metastates to do so much. And I put that list together in 1996. I haven't updated it since. If I was to update it, I think there would probably be a whole lot more that we could add to that. And this is where the metastates model is still in position to grow. And I'm looking for the trainers and the meta coaches to help us grow it, because there is so much more than what we have said.
So I have a question in the chat here from Year One. He's asking, is the genius state a metastate? What textured genius state?
Yes, of course. In fact, when we do the APG in stages, that's one of the manuals that are available to the trainers, APG in stages. You start with the genius state, and then you bring intentionality to it, then you bring power to it, then you bring self-appreciation to it, then you bring managing emotions to it. And so if you did the APG in stages, you would be metastating the genius state 14 times. So yes, it's very much a rich, textured, nuanced metastate.
We also have a question here from Kabadi, is asking, going back to the dance example, does that say anything about the importance of physical movements or embodiment in coaching?
Yes, definitely. So we in NeuroSemantics ought to be engaging people's bodies much more than we do so. So as soon as a person is expressing a state, get them to embrace it, positive or negative, embrace it. Notice their breathing, notice their face, notice the muscle tension. Just go through the whole range of all the kinesthetics, and then have them step out and notice it. And if they're stepping out of a negative state, I mean, you've just done some magic. Let's step out of that into joy. Let's step out of that into appreciation. Let's step out of that into your power zone. So, meta coaches should not be glued to the chairs. No glue. Be ready to stand up and start getting people to activate and mobilize the neurology part of neurolinguistic program.
And we also have a question here from Christian, which is asking, how can we help expand this for you, the meta states, and what can we do to support that is the question.
Well, I think the more you play with the model and you use it in your coaching, you use it in your training, you will start catching some structures that we have not made known yet. And so when you work with someone and they've got this is where, just to come back, because we can put in different elements into something, and then what's going to result is more than the sum of the parts. Then when you're working with something, and let's say envy, what's the structure of envy? What's the structure of jealousy? What's the structure of I give up? So there's so many structures that we have not made explicit, the elements and how they come together, and what one intervention or maybe a couple interventions can just mess it up so that it can't operate in the way it's been operating. And so I think, just given how so many people are working with so many people on so many different things, there's still that discovery mode to find.
So Kibati comments here. So on Zoom, I think she's mentioning back to the embodiment and the dancing and things like that. So on Zoom, she says it's an interesting activity. We need to structure our cameras and frame for movements with the clients.
Yeah, let's just pray that we get over this online training stuff and the COVID goes away and we can get back to normal and we can touch each other and hug each other and kiss each other instead of seeing each other's face on computer screens. I think we've had enough of that.
Meta, yes. We have here also from Alfonso, metastates can be represented in the different arts. It's not really a question, it's a comment, but maybe you could say something about that. Metastates in art?
Well, so every great artist is taking some piece of humanity, whether it's sculpture, whether it's painting, whether it's music, whether it's something much simpler, and then bringing something to it, usually curiosity and playfulness, and out of that comes creativity and innovation. And so, yes, without stating the person who is working with something. So now it becomes a matter of what to bring and what kind of new creativity. Metastating by its very nature is a creative process because you're transcending and including. And as you put these elements together, you are texturing something, and it could be something new that no human being has experienced yet. That's where the expansiveness of this could grow. That who knows what designer states we could co-create with each other if we just put our heads together.
That's amazing. So metastating as a creative activity.
I see all the institutes as possibilities of being think tanks. That all the institutes have a part of the institute that they get together for no other purpose than let's throw out wild and crazy ideas and just see what can come of it that we can offer to our community, our country.
So I think that's all with the questions. We got some celebrations and some happiness in there. Anything to close, Michael? Any final words for us today before we pass it on?
However rich you think the metastates model is, it's richer. It has totally revamped everything in NLP. We have discovered all kinds of new things through the lens of metastates. So I would recommend, in the book, Source Book of Magic, Volume 2, there's 143 metastate patterns. I put that together 15 years ago. We probably now have 300 metastate patterns. How many have you worked? So I would encourage you pursue the metastructure of the experiences that you're working with, because there's so much more than what we have talked about.
So any other questions from the audience while we're here? We have a couple more minutes. If anybody has any questions for Michael, now is your time.
Yeah, I did not write on that. Michael, I want to ask one question. What is the relationship and distinctive from metastating and hypnotizing?
Well, this is part of the unexpected expansiveness of metastates. Every time you metastate, you're hypnotizing because you're taking a person inside. Mm-hmm. And they're transitioning from the outside to the inside. And every level you go up, they're going deeper and deeper or higher and higher into a trance. The question is, what kind of a trance? If it's a positive metastating, you're taking them into a positive trance that will coalesce and become their way of being in the world. So that's why the two books, Hypnotic Thinking and Hypnotic Conversations, are I've got in those in one induction after the next induction, every APG pattern has an induction in hypnotic conversations, because it's all hypnosis.
Thank you. Got that.
Well, if there's no other questions, we could pass it back to you, Mandy.
Okay, thank you. So thanks a lot for Michael and Jason to bring us to a deeper and more insightful of meta states model. So my takeaway is in this session, in the meta stating process, it grows the trance. So we are always only one step away from transformation. So what is your takeaway to today for this subject? So this is the last, probably the last ISNS wisdoms in 2021, right? So for the next one, we will meet again in 2022 for ISNS Wisdom next time. So thank you so much for everyone. So appreciate all of you, even we are in different parts of the planet and different time zone. We are here to be gathered, to refresh, recharge, and upgrade our NS knowledges. So maybe Mohammed, is it this time to take picture now? It's time?
Yes, Marzuki will take the picture for us, I think.
Oh, Masuki. Hi, Masuki.
Yeah.
Are you ready for taking photos? So this is the, thank you everyone. Yeah.
We are ready to take photos now.
Yeah.
And please
turn on
do not
your
put
camera.
anything in your chat box. I'm giving you 15 seconds to do up your makeup so that you look the best that you want to, whatever it is that you need to do. So everyone, I'm going to take, because they are all together 6 screens, so just hold your pose, freeze your smile, and let's begin.
Also, please stop writing something in the chat room because it pops up under there.
Okay, next one. Right, you can, let me just check whether I've got all of the pictures again. Where's my desktop? Oh, I need to take the photos again. Sorry about that. You can redo your makeup.
Do you want me to help you, Marzuki?
Yes, David, somehow it's not working for me. Go ahead, David.
No worry.
Do.
I have only 3 screens, so I think it's better if I take the pictures.
Ah, okay.
So please just stop texting. That's right. Smile. 1, 2, and 3. There we are. That's it. See you soon at NSTT, many of you.
And also in December 11, we will have another online session, ISNS Community Gathering, December 11. That will be closing our year 2021. So see you, everybody. See you there, December 11.
Bye-bye. See you all.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Gracias.
See you.
Gracias. Gracias, Michael. Gracias.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Gracias.